Ivory Coast amongst 20 countries that have significantly improved on the Global Corruption Index. Zimbabwe to allow dollar trading to ease currency squeeze. Plus, Rwanda's cabinet extends central bank governor's term by 6 years. Thank you for joining us and welcome to Business Incorporated. I'm Chimezi Obi Iwagu. First, the markets, and beginning from the African continent, the JSA index in South Africa and the Egyptian markets were the gainers at intraday. Both markets were up 0.79% and 0.28%. The Nigerian stock market was in the red, down 0.25% as at midday. Kenya closed positive on Monday. And in the Middle East, major Gulf bosses except Qatar slipped at intraday, pressured by financial stocks as the markets took a breather after 2 days of gains. Saudi Arabia's stock market weighed down by its banks. The index fell 0.73%, with Al Rajhi Bank dropping 0.6%. The Dubai index was down 0.19% as Emirates NDB fell 1.8%. While Commercial Bank of Dubai slumped 7.5%. Abu Dhabi's blue chip index edged down 0.36%, with Union National Bank falling 1.7% ahead of its board meeting to discuss a potential three-way bank merger that includes Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank and Al Hilal Bank. The Qatar index was also up 0.17%. And European stocks were mixed in morning trade as investors monitored global trade developments, fresh earnings, and another potentially decisive Brexit vote. For these and other developments, let's talk to Paul. Hello, Paul. Good afternoon. Another beautiful day. Well, the U.S. Good afternoon. The U.S. has brought out criminal charges against Chinese telecom giant Huawei. That move comes just as a Chinese delegation has arrived in Washington for trade talks. How will the case affect the simmering trade conflict? Are investors hopeful?
Well, Huawei has gone from really a nobody to the world's second largest smartphone manufacturer in just a few years. So it's a success story. It's naturally the pride of China and the pride of the Chinese government. And so this doesn't go down well with the Chinese government. It has already called for the U.S. to stop the quote-unquote unreasonable suppression of Chinese companies, referring, of course, to Huawei. On top of this, China has also triggered the legal process at the World Trade Organization to look into the U.S. tariffs imposed on Chinese products, to look into whether that's okay or not. All of this not boding well for the negotiations that are happening this week, when mood had already been pretty gloomy. The Association of Investment Companies has actually done a little survey among investors who focus on the Asia and Southeast Asia regions, and there's not really anything positive to get out of these statements, really, because there's no hope for a breakthrough, because it's about so much more than just trade. It is about the perceived threat of intellectual property theft. It is about China's role or China's power display in the Belt and Road Initiative. It is about cybercrime, and a lot of these also play into the Huawei story. And so the outlook was already gloomy this morning. We saw shares in Asia dip on the news about Huawei.
All right, let's look at the development in Greece. That country is issuing the first 5-year bonds on the free capital market, almost 5 months after the end of international aid programs. Does that mean Athens is out of its troubles?
Maybe not quite yet, but it is progress. The Greek government is testing the waters on a free capital market. It emerged from the world of international bailouts in August, and now it seems ready to dip its toe into the international waters without any help. And it does come with a cushion of about 30 billion euros. So even if this doesn't work out well, or if it's not too happy with the market response, it can finance itself by other means. Currently, it's looking to raise 2 to 3 billion euros through these bonds. So it is a test, certainly. And the message from Prime Minister Tsipras is clear: we're doing well after we have ended the help, the international help. He would want to display this image because elections are coming up. And that's also why he's taking back some of the austerity measures that were put in place by the IMF, for example. A current example is the minimum wage. He's planning to raise the minimum wage, bring it up after people have suffered for a long time during the austerity, workers especially. And that's something the IMF is not going to be so happy about, and in fact it has advised Greece that if they're going to proceed with this, they should get more flexibility in the working environment, because it would need to mitigate the negative effects of this increase. So we'll have to see how this plays out. For now, Greece seems to be on more or less a good track, with some issues to watch closely.
Sure. All right, let's look at the recently released Global Corruption Index by Transparency International. Of course, Transparency International, releasing that report for 2018, has the verdict: a collective global failure, they say, to control corruption is contributing to a crisis of democracy across the world. Who are the winners and losers? And what else can we learn from the index?
So personally, I found it very interesting that the United States has dropped out of the top 20 performers, as ethics in the U.S. government or in the U.S. on the highest level seem to be eroding. But what we have to say about all of the index is that it is about perception. It's not actual corruption cases that are brought to the attention of officials. It is a perception. So we need to take this with a grain of salt. Still, we have some countries that perform well regularly, as this year's top performer, Denmark, with 88 points out of 100. There's a good consistency there. Number 2 is New Zealand, and number 3 is tied between Finland, Singapore, Sweden, and Switzerland. Germany at least makes it under the top 10. Personally very happy about that. If we look at it from the bottom up, not doing so well are Somalia, Syria, and South Sudan. So we've got war-torn areas here that make up the bottom of the list. If we compare regions, Central Europe is the outperformer with a score of 66. It's doing best on the corruption perception, whereas Sub-Saharan Africa with 32 isn't doing so well. And it is actually for the regions the bottom performer. Within Sub-Saharan Africa, there are some positive cases. That is, Côte d'Ivoire and Senegal have improved this year, and I believe also in the past. And you're probably going to be interested about Nigeria as well. Mm-hmm. Nigeria scores 27 points and is on Transparency International's list to watch, countries to watch. That's because it's stated as a country with a lot of promise. The report says that there have been a lot of positive steps in the past 3 years, but these steps haven't brought the desired results yet. Fortunately, Transparency International also gives a little piece of advice on what can be done to ensure that corruption is fought and battled against. And their main stress is on strengthening the institutions that allow for checks and balances. Then not just decide on anti-corruption laws, but also put them into practice in police and administration. A support for civil society organizations, so get an increased interest in politics among the public. And then finally, support for free and independent media. I believe you're going to like that, aren't you?
Definitely. Well, thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of the day.